Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 24 of Diehlman at Halftime, the NBA podcast that tops all others. I'm your host, Larry Diehlman. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome aboard, and if you've been a loyal listener, welcome back. We have much to get to today and not a lot of time to do it. We have 5 sections that we'll get into: a general overview of the NBA this week, and our usual highlight, lowlight, random stat, and game of the week. Let's get to our content for the week. We have a story this week involving sports betting in the NBA. Toronto Raptors two-way player Jontay Porter, the brother of Denver's Michael Porter Jr., is under investigation for, quote, irregularities surrounding prop bets based on his statistics. The games in question are Raptors-Clippers on January 26th and Raptors-Kings on March 20th. In these games, Porter put up a few statistics and then he subbed out for the rest of the game. The Raptors claimed in each that the limited time was due to injury or illness. One report said that several accounts were betting the under on Porter for as much as $10,000 to $20,000, which is very suspicious. We just saw last week how the MLB is dealing with LA Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani's interpreter Ippei Mitsuhara. He was caught transferring $4.5 million of Ohtani's money to pay off a gambling debt. Or who could forget the NFL's Calvin Ridley, now a Tennessee Titan, was suspended for a season for betting on games. This included the team he was on at the time, the Atlanta Falcons. We'll have to see what the consequences are for Porter after the NBA's investigation concludes. Also, you might remember that MLB legend Alex Rodriguez and entrepreneur Mark Lore were set to take over majority ownership of the Minnesota Timberwolves earlier this season. Current owner Glenn Taylor, however, said this week that the team is no longer for sale. Wow. According to a press release from Timberwolves PR, quote, under terms of the purchase agreement, the closing was required to occur within 90 days following the exercise notice issued by Lore and Rodriguez. That 90-day period expired on March 27, 2024. Taylor added, I will continue to work with Mark, Alex, and the rest of the ownership group to ensure our teams have the necessary resources to compete at the highest levels on and off the court. The Timberwolves and WNBA's Lynx are no longer for sale. This episode is entitled Headlines. So, who's raising eyebrows at the moment? Let's go to our highlight, the Cleveland Cavaliers. In years past, the Cleveland Cavaliers were awful in seasons without LeBron James. Remember when LeBron went to the Heat for 4 years? Yeah, the Cavs won the draft lottery for 3 of those years. That isn't a problem anymore. The Cavaliers are 45-30 and third in the East. They have been doing a solid job of building around their young core, and a certain trade in 2022 definitely helped. Donovan Mitchell is the catalyst for Cleveland, averaging about 27 points, 5.2 rebounds, 6.1 assists, and 1.7 steals per game. Mitchell has a player option for the 2025-26 season, and he's been quiet on potentially signing an extension. Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert told the Associated Press, quote, we've been talking to him, sure, for the last couple of years about extending this contract. We think he will extend. I think if you listen to him talk, he loves the city. He loves the situation in Cleveland because our players are very young, and we're just kind of putting the core together that he's clearly the biggest part of, end quote. The Cavs also have studs like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley, and they brought in shooters Max Strus and George Niang last summer. If the playoffs started today, they would host the Pacers in the first round as a 3-6 matchup. A favorable matchup indeed. The Pacers and Cavs even see each other on Friday, April 12th in Cleveland. Playoff prelude, anybody? But their next game is on Tuesday, April 2nd at 9 o'clock. They will be in Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Jazz. Let's go to our low light, the San Antonio Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs are the low light this week because of their record right now, but I guarantee they won't be a low light in the coming years. The Spurs are 18-57, last in the West, and they possess the third worst record in the NBA. The Spurs have been in the Western Conference's basement in recent years, but Rookie of the Year hopeful Victor Wembanyama is the star of the show. Wembanyama is averaging 21.2 points, 10.5 rebounds, about 3.5 assists, 1.3 steals, and 3.4 blocks per night. He leads the league as a rookie in blocks per game by one whole block. There's a four-way tie for second with 2.4. Besides Wembanyama, San Antonio is also building around role players like Devin Vassell, Trey Jones, and Keldon Johnson. But they're also in line to grab another top draft pick for 2024. Although the draft lottery is determined by random selection of ping pong balls, the Spurs might have a chance at a top prospect like Alexander Sarr, Rob Dillingham, or Zachary Risache. Risache is French, just like Wembanyama, by the way. San Antonio has 7 games to go, and then draft season begins. Their next game is on Tuesday, April 2nd at 9 o'clock. They will be on the road to face the Denver Nuggets. Let's go over to our random stat. On Easter Sunday, against the aforementioned Cavs, Denver Nuggets center Nikola Jokić had another ridiculous performance. He dropped 26 points, 18 rebounds, and 16 assists in 35 minutes of action. He currently has the record for most 25-point, 15 rebound, and 15 assist games while shooting 60% or more in NBA history with 4 such instances. Wilt Chamberlain is in second with 3. Everyone else on the list has 1 each. Jokić continues to prove to all of the fans and haters why he'll be in the top 10 to 15 discussion when he calls it a career. Shooting 60% in a game is great. Shooting 60% with a triple-double is bonkers. In his last 4 games, the Joker has played some tough competition: Phoenix, Minnesota, and Cleveland, and yet he's still putting up his usual numbers. Heck, Jokić secured that triple-double against the Cavs in the third quarter while Denver was absolutely blowing them out. Remember, this guy is 4th in NBA history with 128 triple-doubles, and he has the most ever for a center. He'll most likely pass Russell Westbrook one of these years, just not yet. But we know Jokić doesn't care about all of these stats. He'd rather be with his horses in Serbia. Finally, let's go to Game of the Week. For this week's Game of the Week, let's take the Golden State Warriors at Houston Rockets. This game is on Thursday, April 4th at 8 o'clock. As we mentioned in last week's highlights section, this could be a huge game for the Western Conference play-in tournament seeds. Before the play-in tournament begins, one more team has to be eliminated from each conference, since the 12 through 15 seeds are already out. The Eastern team is most likely going to be Brooklyn. For the West, unless the Lakers collapse, it'll be either Golden State or Houston missing the playoffs entirely. Houston is red hot as Dallas just snapped their 11-game winning streak. They won against Cleveland, Sacramento, and they took down Oklahoma City on the road in overtime in that stretch. Golden State has been up and down this season, with one reason being Draymond Green's suspensions. Heck, he was just ejected on Wednesday again for picking up 2 technical fouls. He was arguing with a ref in the Warriors' win in Orlando, and they tossed him. In terms of the actual matchup, the young, hungry Rockets will be hosting a proven veteran Warriors team. The winner would have a good chance to grab that 10th seed, while the loser won't. Give me the Warriors 118-111. To get more insight into our Game of the Week this week, we have our 5th guest on Diehlman at Halftime. Let's get into it. So, for our fifth guest on the Diehlman at Halftime podcast, we welcome Danny Ryan. Danny is a part time radio producer for two organizations. He works for 97.3 ESPN FM South Jersey, which is based in Northfield, New Jersey. He is also with Odyssey's 94.1 WIP, based in Philadelphia. Danny has a sports communication and media degree from Rowan University with a minor in marketing. Additionally, he served as sports director for Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM. Danny, how we doing today?
Doing great, Larry. Thanks for having me on the pod. It's a pleasure. I haven't talked to you in a while too, so it'll be nice to catch up with you. But yeah, let's talk some NBA basketball.
Yeah, it's been a while indeed from our days at Rowan Radio. So, Danny, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Rockets Warriors game, which is on Thursday, April 4th at 8 o'clock in Houston, and the implications that will be huge for the Western Conference play-in tournament, since the Rockets Warriors game is this week's game of the week. So, my first question for you, this season, the Warriors are slightly better on the road, and the Rockets are significantly better at home. Who do you think wins this game in Houston and why?
It's tough because you never want to doubt a team that has experience. You never want to doubt Steph Curry, but I don't think that this Warriors team really has enough left in the tank. I mean, granted, the Rockets are just getting hot right now at the right time. Jalen Green seems ever since he's had those three kids is just going on a dad tour where he's just showing his dad strength and playing his best basketball of his career so far. A lot of people wrote him off at just a young age. I believe he's still only 22, but he's really carrying this team right now. They've won 10 straight games. So I'm going to go with the hot hand here and say the Rockets, they're at home. They've been playing great basketball recently. And, they obviously added some huge additions that I know we'll talk about later on in the podcast. But, you bring in a guy like Dillon Brooks who adds toughness, leadership. He's gritty. Fred VanVleet, a proven guard on top of already talented players. Alperen Sengun, I know he's been a little beat up this season, but still, he's taken a leap this year. So I just don't know if the Warriors have much left in the tank. And I mean, the clear elephant in the room is Draymond Green. I mean, he literally had Steph Curry crying the other night after he got ejected 3.5 minutes into the game. So give me the Rockets in this one. I'm going to ride the hot hand. And, I just don't think the Warriors have enough left, at least on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, some good points there, and obviously you can't go against the hot hand, but then at the same time with the Warriors, we've always had people be like, well, you can't bet against Steph Curry either. So either one could really you can go either way on this one. So my next question for you, Houston is a young up-and-coming team. They pounced on signing head coach Ime Udoka to replace Steven Silas. They brought in Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks for a veteran presence. Do you think in a potential playoff scenario that they could make noise, or do you think it'd be another year or two? Because when I did my power rankings predictions earlier in the year, I said the Houston Rockets could be a sneaky team in getting in the play-in or the playoffs. So what are your thoughts on a potential playoff situation with them?
I mean, you look at this team and obviously weren't playing great basketball for the majority of the season. Like I just mentioned, they're starting to heat up now, but they've got six players, double-digit scoring, starting with Cam Whitmore all the way up to Alperen Sengun. I mean, Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith is a guy I didn't even mention yet. I think if they can continue to play basketball like this, specifically Jalen Green, giving them that boost, because they had Fred VanVleet, they had Alperen Sengun, but they never really had that third scorer. Jabari Smith, he's going to be good in the future, but he's not quite there yet. Dillon Brooks, we know what he is. He's going to shoot the three ball pretty well for you. He's going to play gritty defense, but he's not a third star. And now they're getting that third star in Jalen Green, and he's honestly elevating himself to the second star over Fred VanVleet with how he dominates the ball. So I think that this team, if they continue to play like that, could definitely make some noise, but it's going to be tough. I mean, it's not a given that they could even make the playoffs right now. They'll probably make the play-in, but I mean, you have the Suns, the Kings, the Lakers, the Warriors. That's a pretty tough team to try and go up against, and not even mentioning the Dallas Mavericks, who, if they lose a few games, they could drop into the play-in as well. So I do think it's going to take a few more years for the Rockets to really make quote-unquote noise in the playoffs, because I just don't know how you can get past the playoff experience of a guy like Steph Curry or a guy like LeBron James. Like, I know I took the Rockets in this upcoming game on Thursday, but if we're talking playoff games, I'm taking the veteran leadership and experience of Steph Curry or LeBron James, or even, quite frankly, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. They proved a lot last season in the playoffs that they're not a team to be messed with. And then I didn't even mention the likenesses of Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. So it's a nice story, and I think they definitely have potential. They'll make a few, roster additions and improvements to kind of help the roster fit better, I believe, this offseason, but I think it's going to take another year or two.
Some good points there. And one player that I don't think you brought up, but I think could be a factor in the future is Amen Thompson. Obviously, the Thompson brothers
Yes.
came into this past year's draft. Asar went to the Pistons. My condolences to him. So Amen Thompson could probably make an impact in the future, but we'll see about the playoffs in the coming years. So my next question, what do you make of the Warriors this season? Draymond Green, as we know, has been suspended multiple times, and like you mentioned, he got ejected 4 minutes into the Warriors' win against the Magic the other day. Klay Thompson has started to come off the bench this season. I know a lot of fans have said he's washed, and the 2 years of injuries probably took a toll on him. And the core of Steph, Clay, and Dre, and now with Chris Paul too, is aging. This is a group over 30 and pushing 40. So is time almost up for this team?
100%. And I think Stephen Curry realizes that. And, it's kind of been the worst kept secret in the league, at least from my point of view, with all the rumors swirling that Steph Curry might want to play with LeBron James at some point in his career before the two retire. And LeBron, let's be honest, I mean, if anybody's going to play into their mid 40s, it's probably LeBron, but even that's rare for a guy like LeBron. The human body just does not hold up like that, no matter how much money you put into training it and, just making sure you have the right conditioning. So I think that this Warriors team probably, it's a hot take, but I think they probably will dismantle things after this year if they don't have a successful playoff run. You saw in the offseason, they go and acquire a guy like Chris Paul. They ship off Jordan Poole because obviously the Draymond Green and Jordan Poole dislike for each other, but also Jordan Poole, we've seen his true colors in Washington. They bring in a proven veteran like Chris Paul, who's kind of like a much better Kyle Lowry point guard in the sense that, Lowry obviously is Philadelphia 76ers fans here, Larry. We see how he has improved our roster and how he's improved our offense. And he's not even in his prime right now. I mean, he's just a leader out there on the court when he's commanding the offense. He knows where to go to. He knows the certain sets to run. And I think that's Chris Paul for this Warriors team. So if they're not going to dismantle things, they really are going to have a dominant playoff run. But I think even if, they go and win the finals, or they go and they make the conference finals and they, lose in, let's say, 6 or 7 games, this GM, a new GM, by the way, he's going to have to look himself in the mirror and just say, listen, Draymond's not a spring chicken. Chris Paul, it was a nice story, but his best basketball is certainly behind him. And, we either have to build around Stephen Curry for the next 3 to 4 years if we can get that out of Curry, or we have to start building through the draft. I mean, if you look at it right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but their one bright young piece is Jonathan Kuminga. I mean, you could throw Trace Jackson Davis in there, but he's still an unpolished product. So, I mean, if the franchise doesn't look too great when you're building around a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, who, good player, but I don't think he can be the focal point of your franchise moving forward. So unless they make a deep run this year, in short, I think it is kind of time to dismantle things, and the time might be up for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, some good points there. And like you said, Kuminga might be their only young prospect right now. And do you remember that story that came out a few months ago at this point that Kuminga wasn't seeing eye to eye with Steve Kerr, like he wasn't getting enough playing time or something? Do you remember that?
Yes. And then he caught it out in the media, or I mean, at least leaked it out to the media. And then all of a sudden he starts getting more minutes, and he's proving why he deserves more minutes, averaging almost 17 points a game, almost 5 rebounds. I mean, the guy is a proven baller, and he wasn't getting the playing time he deserved.
Yeah, and I think Steve Kerr probably wants to hold on to this lineup for as long as he can. But I mean, let's face the music here. This is not, as you said, like a lineup that's full of spring chickens. I mean, they almost lost to the Kings last year in 7. So it could go either way. But right now, I think if they miss the playoffs entirely, I don't think this core is going to be looking at a happy offseason.
Larry, real quick, let me ask you this. So I brought up LeBron and Steph Curry. Do you think it's more likely, and let's just assume both stay where they are right now, LeBron with the Lakers and Curry with the Warriors. Do you think it's more likely that LeBron goes to the Warriors, or Curry goes to the Lakers if they're to team up?
I think Curry goes to the Lakers because obviously with if LeBron is the one that moves, then the media narrative is going to be, well, LeBron is trying to make another super team. There goes his legacy. But if Curry goes the other way, then it's like, all right, LeBron's just getting firepower here. So I think Curry to the Lakers would be a little more likely. I think LeBron
Mhm.
wants to stay in Los Angeles, even though the Warriors play in San Francisco. But I think Curry to the Lakers is a little more likely. Why? What do you say?
I would agree, but I would agree for a different reason. And you take a look, we just mentioned the kind of empty, or for lack of a better word, describe it, frail talent-wise roster that the Warriors have right now. The Lakers roster is very underrated, in my opinion. I don't think they're playing nearly up to the speed they should be with the talent they have, and they proved it a few nights ago when they beat the Bucks in double overtime. Austin Reeves with a triple double, he locked in, had that Miami Heat LeBron look, and then all of a sudden popped off to lead them to victory. D'Angelo Russell has been playing terrific basketball ever since the trade rumors. I don't think there's a better point guard in the league than trade rumor or trade deadline D'Angelo Russell. And then Anthony Davis, when he's on, I mean, he is on, my man. And I didn't even mention LeBron James there. So I just think the Lakers have overall the better constructed roster that Steph Curry would, probably say, hey, I'll come to you. We don't have the best situation here in Golden State. Well, let's win something in LA.
Yes, that's a good point too. And I don't know because if Steph goes to the Lakers on a hypothetical situation, I think Darvin Ham would get his pink slip because there was a video that came out. LeBron, I think it was that game against the Clippers. They made that comeback win a few weeks ago, and LeBron said, "Yeah, I was just vetoing everything Darvin Ham said." So that would definitely be interesting if they could get like Curry and then dump Ham.
Yeah, I mean, Ham seemed like a good signing at the time. He came from the Milwaukee Bucks, but I don't know if it's just the how do I explain this? The power battle between LeBron James and his head coaches, because obviously LeBron is the coach when he's on the court. The coach is going to call certain plays. He's going to, quite frankly, recommend certain things to LeBron. But when LeBron's out there, I mean, he is such an advanced basketball mind. His IQ is off the charts. And we kind of saw that a little bit when he was being coached by Tyronn Lue in Cleveland. Lue, don't get me wrong, a good coach. But ever since he's left LeBron, I mean, it just, nobody, frankly, no coach looks the same after leaving LeBron, aside from an established guy in Eric Spoelstra, who was already a proven great NBA coach before LeBron got there. So there's kind of just like a power trip when LeBron's out there on the court, in the sense that he wants to be the coach. He wants to command things. He wants to direct the offense and tell the guys what to do. I don't blame him because, quite frankly, he could be a coach with how old he is. But yeah, it just seems to be that Darvin Ham and LeBron James, quite frankly, the Lakers, they're off page to a certain extent. If you understand what I'm saying, like they one night they'll be looking like the best team in the league, and granted they have picked up their basketball recently and they've looked better, but one night they'll look great. Next night they'll look probably like a 11 seed in the Western Conference. So I don't know if that's credited to coaching or if that's credited to poor play. I would go with Darvin Ham and coaching, because we've seen this time in and time out that the sets they run out there don't look the best at times. So I don't know. I think if LeBron has any say in it, which he does, Darvin Ham might not be back, if not next year, the year after.
Yeah, some good points there. And then to get to my final question, as of this recording, the four teams in the play-in tournament in order would be the Suns, Kings, Lakers, and either the Warriors or Rockets. Now, as of yesterday when I looked, both conferences, one more team has to be eliminated before the play-in tournament. So in the East, it's most likely going to be Brooklyn, and then either the Warriors or Rockets have to go. So, which two in the West make the playoffs and which two get bounced? So, remember for our audience, the 7-8 winner gets the 7 seed, the 9-10 loser is out, and then the 7-8 loser and 9-10 winner gets the 8th seed. I would probably say, as of right now, probably the Suns and Lakers, but Danny, what do you got?
So I thought Suns and Lakers at first, but I'm gonna go a bit of a different route. So I do think that the Rockets don't make the play in, or pardon me, don't make the play in. Actually, it's 7, 8, 9, and 10, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So I don't think the Rockets make the play in. I just think that it's too much of an uphill battle. They've been playing literally perfect basketball, and they're still not in the play in spot right now. And like I said before earlier in the podcast. I just think that the Warriors with their playoff experience, Steph Curry, who's still a generational talent, still playing great basketball and could pop off for 45 plus points on any given night. I think he's going to lead them to secure that final play-in spot. As far as who makes the playoffs, the two teams I would pick are going to be the Lakers and the Kings. Now, I do think the Warriors make it interesting to make the playoffs, but I really liked what I saw from the Kings last postseason. I mean, they proved a lot to me. Domantas Sabonis, I think, is one of the more underrated players in the league. I know he's got that double-double streak going, and I just think that roster for some reason fits. I mean, they have the sixth man of the year candidate, or favorite, I should say, in Malik Monk, who really was just struggling to be on an NBA roster a few years ago. They bring him to Sacramento. He looks like a completely different player. So I do like the Sacramento Kings when it comes to the postseason. I think they're really poised to make some noise. And then, I mean, I think the Lakers pick speaks for itself. I mentioned earlier, a talented roster that wasn't playing up to their standard for majority of the season. And it's like Tom Brady, but for the NBA, you can't bet against LeBron James. His pure physical stature, I mean, he is, 38 going on 39 at this point, and he's still one of the most ripped guys in the league. He could throw an elbow into you any given night and muscle his way into the paint for an N1 in overtime to, secure the W. So while he has taken a smaller role in Los Angeles and, has taken a smaller role with his later age, I do think that this roster is one of the more talented in the Western Conference that really just wasn't playing up to their standard for majority of the season. And like I said before, probably wasn't getting coached the way they should have for majority of the season. So give me the Kings and the Lakers in the postseason. And if you're, I'll just throw this in there as well. If you're going to ask me who might go farther, it's a hot take, but give me the Kings. The Lakers are good, and I think they could really, kind of activate go mode when it comes to the playoffs and just try and cruise to the finals. But the Kings, man, I think they're a sleeper when it comes to the Western Conference playoffs. So I would take the Kings to go farther.
All right, some interesting takes there. And what you said about LeBron is actually 39. He's already
Okay.
39. So yeah, he's getting up there in age. You know what stinks for all these teams, no matter how far we think they could go, is that two of these teams have the unfortunate luck of running into one of the Nuggets, the Thunder, or the Timberwolves.
Right.
So that's gonna be it's
How
gonna
about
be
the
an interesting
Timberwolves,
year.
by the way? I mean, the Timberwolves, they seem to have just clicked with every single piece on their offense this season, obviously led by Anthony Edwards, but that wasn't a team that scared me really at all coming into the season. I thought maybe they could be a play-in type of team. And then the Thunder, like you mentioned, I mean, that team is kind of what the Sixers tried to build with their process days. And they didn't draft Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Granted, they traded Paul George for him, but they have the big man, they have the point guard, they have Josh Giddey, who kind of acts as though as the Ben Simmons type on the Sixers team, where he's not going to do too much offensively, but he facilitates. Those teams, I think, are going to run the West for at least the next 4 to 5 years. They've
Oh
looked
yeah.
terrific this year.
Yeah, they look really good over there in the Western Conference. And what's scary about the Thunder too, as we wrap up, the Thunder obviously are one of the top teams in the West, and they've been hoarding draft picks like there's no
Oh,
tomorrow. So like when I know I've seen people online say like, well, wait a minute, when Sam Hinkie tanks, it's okay, but when Sam Presti tanks, it's okay. But when Hinkie does it, oh my gosh, the Sixers are ruining the league. Get somebody in there right now. So they might have another top pick coming up, which is even scarier when you factor in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
right. I mean, the leap that Shai Gilgeous has taken as well. I mean, he is an MVP candidate at this point. I've been seeing side by side comparisons on certain video platforms when they show videos of Kobe compared to Shai Gilgeous, or a guy like even James Harden compared to Shai Gilgeous this season. He's starting to really develop that footwork in that game similar to those guys. I mean, it's uncanny, to be honest with you, when you really go look at the side by side highlights. Just his pure fundamentals. It's going to be scary for any other team in the Western Conference that has to run into that team, combined with Chet Holmgren, obviously Josh Giddey, like I mentioned. Jalen Williams is a very underrated piece on that roster. So it's going to be interesting to see what those two teams do in the future. But yeah, like you said, one of the Kings or Lakers are going to have to run into the Nuggets, Timberwolves, or Thunder. So let's see if they can get past them. But I do like the chances.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on social media. I have 2 Twitter accounts and 2 Instagram accounts. The podcast accounts are under @Diehlman_NBA for both Twitter and Instagram. My personal Twitter is @LarryDiehlman18, and my personal Instagram is @Mr_Sports18. They're also in the description on SoundCloud. And thank you to Danny Ryan for being our guest this week on the podcast. Remember, you can follow him on Twitter @DannyRy02, that is @DANNYRY02, and Instagram @DannyRyan_, @DANNYRYAN_. And don't forget to spread the word about Diehlman at halftime. See you next time, fellow Hoops fans.